had a question the other day on pressure testing. Legitimate question, right? Because in traditional arts, it's very hard to pressure test. Because a lot of the things that you throw are designed to really injure people. You know, when you're doing a sport art, you can pressure test all day. Because the stuff you're throwing may knock the guy out or may hurt him, but you're not trying to actually damage him to the point where he can't continue to fight the next day. They actually, sport arts have that real advantage where they get to practice that all the time under load and under stress. And a lot of times they will actually be better than guys who do things that are actually more violent because they get to practice it at speed and environment. They don't. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, when you do traditional martial arts, the only way to really pressure test it completely is you'd have to go out and be assaulted and then hurt someone with no actual concern for their well-being. Many, many years ago, that was common, right? You had warrior societies, you had people robbing you, and you know, what happened to them was irrelevant. You broke them up, you learned, and that's what you did. But we don't live in that society, which makes it very hard. We go to karate, right? And you'd learn things that were really not particularly nice. A lot of elbows, inside work, a lot of eyes, a lot of ears. And then you'd spar and everyone would kickbox effectively. Well, under pressure and stress, you do what you do under stress, and that's what you're going to do. So most of those people who did karate have no ability to actually use what they do because they're kickboxers under stress. So, you know, hard contact stuff is important. You have to do it. My first number of styles were very physical. I used to get really, really loved up to the body and the legs. You know, a lot of times we didn't even wear pads. You just took the beating, right? And it's good to teach you spirit and teach you how to fight, but you don't actually learn how to hit people in ways that are fight enders. So that's one way. I've also done ones like the helmet head suit where everyone gets in the big suits and they come at you. And again, that's great because you really get to pound on that guy at speed. But again, that's kind of crap too because, you know, I'll give you an example. A guy came at me once and he was kind of an ass. He was out there trying to prove that all martial arts sucked. So he comes and he goes to attack me in this giant freaking suit. And I took my fingers and I put my thumb through the nets of his eyes. I mean, like this deep. And he got done and he goes, "See that? Your mark doesn't work." Well, I'm thinking, of course it didn't work. Your eyes are that far back behind the net. I actually didn't touch them. If I had done that to you at speed, that probably would have had some effect. So those things are good to mix in too, but you can't take them as complete reality. The bottom line is there's no good way to pressure test any martial art that's violent without actually hurting somebody. This is what it is, you know. It's not to say they don't work. You can see it. You watch sports. You watch people in basketball who land on their ankle and their knee wrong, watch it pop out. You watch football when people roll on the lineman's legs and you see them rip up ACLs and MCLs and break legs. It all works. It's just hard to do when you're not doing it for real. So how do you test that stuff? Or at least how do you get it to where you feel you can use it? Well, let me give you a couple ideas. So when you first learn stuff like this, it has to be super slow. Well, that's not pressure test, I know. But how do you learn it if it's not slow? So you have to study things like the joints. You have to understand and feel how they work. And you understand if I did that faster, it would be much worse. I've done it, not on purpose, right? I've had people in class where I ripped a thumb out of joint and they turn white and they want to throw up on you. It's a good time. You know, you can see it. It's just hard to train. But unless you understand skeletally how people break and how everything moves, you have to see how the joints break and how they rip. But you have to do it slow. Now, how do you know you're doing it right? Because you can tell by them. So I'll do it like this just to show you. I wouldn't fight this way. It's just an idea. If I go like this and I pin his ankle, do you see how he has to go that way because of his knee? If that goes really fast, that knee is going to have a bad day. It's the same thing with his ankle. If I go like this and I go into that ankle, I was really stomping on that ankle. You know, I've done that to my ankle in basketball where you land on it, you roll it. I mean, it gets like that big and it turns purple underneath. It can be done, but again, it's hard to show unless you're really trying to hurt somebody. But what you have to do is at first practice with it till you understand how all the joints work. Once you understand how they work, then you can start playing with them. So I'm going to take the elbow for an example, right? Now, a little tip on this. Because he's letting me do this, I have him at full stretch. The only way that elbow gets injured is if he's at full stretch. If he tenses and goes like this, I can't do this. And in reality, most people will do that. They're not going to let you break their elbows. So you have to understand that if this is going to happen, you have to do something first that allows you to stretch them and put them in that position where you can drop on it. So let's just take this one for example. We'll take this, and then we'll take this one. Once you structurally understand how it works, then you have to find something to at least practice on that gives you some kind of feel. So if I wanted to work against his elbow, you have to at least work against this to get this idea, right? If I want to drop on it, I have to get that feel for how I can rip this thing like that. It's good to get things that are a little flexible, that are stiff. Like that's electrical PVC. It's got more play than like plumbing PVC. And you can actually tear on it. You know, it's not real good for my partners to do that to him at speed, right? With him, I'm just going to do it kind of slow and get a feel for how it moves him. Now, this is dependent on your partner too. If you get a partner who just goes with it, it's not helping your cause. Like if you do it wrong, he should look at you like you're silly. So until you practice it where you actually understand, okay, he's going with me not because he's just going with me, because he really doesn't have any choice. That's great and all, but that's slow and static where everyone's letting it happen. So some days you take drills where you slowly do this kind of more fluid to get the feel for it. So let's say he's like trying to punch through me, right? I'm going to lead him and I'm going to work on the elbow. He's going to punch through me again, right? I'm going to go against the elbow. He's going to come through me again and we're going to go against the elbow. And ideally down the road what happens is you don't let him tell you which hand, or you don't even let him tell you which angle you're going on, right? So he changes things all the time. So you learn to just practice to go with it. Now I understand this isn't at speed. And I understand he's really leaning into me. And what you're going to find too is the sport guys are not wrong on this sometimes. A lot of these techniques that are finishers are because someone was sloppy and they threw it so far and so uncoordinated that you were allowed to get a hold of it. A trained fighter is much smaller and they're much more compact. They are not going to give you these joints. A lot of times with guys like that, you have to hit them somewhere and really injure them to the point where they give it to you, not because they want to, because they're not paying attention to it. But you're never just going to walk up to a trained fighter and go after a knee, or go after an elbow or a wrist. It ain't going to happen. You know, you start slow letting people punch at you. You learn how to take stuff off the body, practice how to go to these things. And I'm just working elbows for now. I mean, it could be other things, right? You go out, hit them that way. Or, you know, people ask me about kicks all the time. You could learn how to, you know, find those kicks inside. Or, you know, they come in and you find ways to take their legs and pop their ankles. And you should do that free flow as you get better with this. And again, this isn't sparring, because here's the problem. There's one last problem with this. I find this all the time. When I used to try to use more violent stuff sparring with people, they don't respect it. And why would they? Because you're not going to do it. So I remember sparring in the old days, people come in and boom, I'd stop because I didn't want to take their head off. And then they just pick you up and throw you on your head because you were being kind. So you got two options there. Either you have to really hurt the guy, or you have to lay off, and in which case you're vulnerable. You know, I was fighting this guy once, he was like 350. And I was being kind to him, and he picked me up and slammed me into a wall, trying to blow me in the face. So I may or may not have accidentally kneed him in the groin after that. And guess what? Magically it worked. It's surprising, right? On the ground, hold himself. I ground his face into the ground just because I was pissed. It is what it is. But, you know, the problem is like, you got one guy who's trying to spar with you and win, and you're trying to work more advanced technique, and you're laying off, and so he takes advantage of it. So you got to work with people with half a brain too. If you get people who are just idiots, it's very hard to do this work. So the next step to this personally is you want people to swing at you harder, but don't turn it into a fight. Just let them swing once, right? It's a learning thing to deal with speed. So if he swings at you really hard in the body, right? Now I'm practicing more at a speed, right? If he swings at my head, right? Now I got to get used to moving against that. I'm letting him come at me, right? I want him to try and hit me. It's okay, right? I work against his elbows, I work against his knees, you know, whatever. But you see the layering to this? Static, then slow, relaxed, and then coming at you very hard with a deep technique. And after that, I don't know what else to tell you, because unless you're willing to rip someone's ACL up, or you're willing to put one in their eye, or go right to their ear, which I've been hit there. And let me tell you, I had a guy hit me there in sparring. I meant it, put a hole in my ear. You know, this stuff has effect. It's just hard to train that way. As a traditional martial artist, you are going to hear crap from the sport crowd like you won't believe. Sometimes it's justified. Sometimes you'll see schools that are pity-pat and they do silly things that don't work. I get that. But a lot of times sport guys also get away with stuff too, because a lot of people are decent human beings and they're not willing to hurt them unless they have to. And in which case you're always at a disadvantage if you're not willing to hurt them and they're willing to hurt you. Ignore them. Right? You're going to hear a lot of talking. It's fine. Practice as real as you can. Try and always practice with people who move and slow. Practice with people where you learn how to pop things. Practice with implements that allow you to go faster. Practice in isolated situations where people come at you really hard, but don't telegraph it. Right? Again, a lot of the problems with traditional martial arts too is a lot of the attacks are everyone knows they're coming, right? I'm going to attack you with X, I'm going to attack you with Y. And then you work against it. It's not enough. You have to have people attack you with stuff that you don't know is coming. And at speed. So stay true to your art and mix it up. Go to different seminars, go and try stuff maybe like helmet head. Go try variations and see how many different ways you can learn to do these things that make it as real as you can, so that when you get in a real situation, at least you have a chance. But again, don't be surprised, because you don't get to use this in the real world, and the first time it happens, it may be a little iffy, because you've never done it that way. But do the best you can, and stay true to your art, and ignore all the people who just don't know any better. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Leave comments. Feel free to share. It helps the channel grow.